So another fairly straightforward hypertexture project. I'm going to employ this Stanford Dragon model from the Stanford Scanning Repository. I think this one was converted for me by Graham Dretch, and at the moment we've got default Bryce lighting and the model is in default grey material, as is the ground. I'm going to modify the model first and I'm going to convert it initially to fuzzy, so you can see the effect of fuzzy, and this just is a sort of grey material. Now if I convert the fuzzy channel here so it's ambient rather than diffuse, you'll see that you have this effect, which is quite interesting, but no real definition on the model, and it doesn't really show up against the sky here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the sky and turn the atmosphere off, set it to fully black so you can see the model now, and I'm going to modify the ground material here. I'm going to change that to black. I'm going to make it fully metallic, so it'll convert the diffuse black into the reflective surface, so you get this sort of mirroring effect. And I think to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm going to add a bit of bump. So if I go and put a blob in the bump channel here, give it a bump of 10, and then click on the shift key, I can bring in one of these basic textures which you'll have. I'll use this basic distance origin and just modify this slightly in the deep texture editor. So I'm working with the first component. I'm using bump, so I'll select the bump channel here. I'll just open these dialogues. I don't need any of this clip filter. I'll use a sine filter instead, which I'll reset and then just increase the frequency of. And I think to get this spreading out a little bit more, I'll change it from distance origin to distance squared. Distance squared you'll be familiar with if you've followed any of the hypertexture videos. So let's see, it's in object space. I'll change it to world space, and the frequency looks rather high, so I'll set this down, I don't know, 50 in each. Let's see, and well, looking at that, we need another dimension adding, so I'll look in the noise here. Yes, I need 3 dimensions, so it'll spread out on the 2D plane, and then if I give that a quick render, it should have a sort of an isotropic effect caused by the frequency of this, which I might lower a little bit further. So I'll take this down, I'll take it down to 12. Okay, and so we've got it there. So you can see now it's a bit like ripples. I'm getting a bit distracted by what I was doing here, but I just wanted something that would be quite dark but also provide a bit of interest down at the bottom here. So back onto the dragon then. I'm going into the material. I'm going to change the ambient output to blue. Okay, now because the ambient is driven by the global ambient colour, I need that to be fully white to get the best out of this effect, so that's going to be a nice bright blue. And then I'm going to provide some definition by providing a hypertexture. If I just provide diffuse at this moment, even if I make it fully white, for example, then it just adds a sort of a fuzzy but diffuse effect to the outside of this, and I want something a little bit more striking. So I'm going to use a blob in here, and then hold the shift key down and go into the deep texture editor and modify the check blue as I do for the hypertextures. I'll go into the texture source editor. I just want the alpha output, and I need the noise to be set, the type to be not square but distance squared, the mode to be minimum octaves 1, and a frequency of -1. Now if I want to quickly make this from a highly negative value, which is this is now, to a highly positive value, I can just use combine it with itself and use multiply there. So minus times minus is plus, so that gives me a very high positive output. This has the effect of seeming to come outside the fuzzy surface because it's so high. I'm going to change the diffuse colour to red. I'm going to add specularity and then overdrive that as well, leaving it at the default setting for the specular halo, and you can see that's given a white highlight. So I've got red and white and blue. So now you can see that's a rather dramatic effect. I'm going to need to roll the sun around so it's just glancing along the edge of this model. So depending how far I move it round will depend how little or much of this effect you see. So just meddle with that control a little bit there. You can see it's not taking very long to render this effect, and there you go. In just under 5 minutes well, slightly over now because I'm doing the AA pass. We've got a stylized render using a hypertexture and fuzzy material. So there you go. Hope you found that interesting and that you'll have a go with this effect in your own renders. Cheers now.